gratitude to all of you for joining us today for today's event, Inspiracao. Today's talk will revolve around diversity and women leadership. Before we start the session, let me take a moment and welcome everybody. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome our honorable speaker of today's session, Dipika Trehan. Welcome, ma'am. I would also like to welcome all the participants to today's session. A lively welcome, guys, and happy learning. But before we dive into the talk, here's the format to give you an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments to introduce our guest today and tell you a little bit about their background in the industry. We will then start with the session. And then in the second half of our time today, we'll open up the floor to give you an opportunity to ask specific questions that you may have. Okay, so let's begin. Dipika Trehan is a graduate of Delhi University and has an MBA in HR from IMT Ghaziabad. Recently awarded Top Global Diversity and Inclusion Leader by ET Now in Feb 2020. She represented India in Haifa, Israel, on a 4-week scholarship awarded by the government of Israel for the Innovation in Women's Health program. Her work has been applauded in person by Ms. Sherry Blair for her contribution to corporate well-being and empowerment. Deepika is a certified universal health mental health first aid trainer. She has also been awarded Iconic Women Creating a Better Place for All by WEF. Having stayed abroad for close to a decade, she understands the nuances of cross-cultural barriers and prevalent well-being and leadership gaps. She has been consistently contributing towards employee well-being and development, diversity and inclusion at the workplace, and has created an ever-growing tribe of corporate sisterhood through her flagship Women Leadership Development Program called Corporate Diva. Corporate Diva enables women empowerment in corporate India. Her corporate client list includes companies like PepsiCo, Goldman Sachs, IBM, General Motors, Grant Thornton, Indigo, Flipkart, Amazon, Unilevers, Syngene, GlaxoSmithKline, Capgemini, Mindtree, Accenture, Emphasis, Harman, Biocon, Mylan, and much more. And we also know that during the period of COVID-19 surge, many corporate giants like Tata, Reliance, Wipro, all of their shares were down, but that didn't happen with Dipika Trehan. She was awarded as Karnataka's top woman leader. So this is how she's different from the others. We are highly honored to have you here with us, ma'am. We would now like to request you to take over and let's start with today's chat.
Thank you for the warm introduction, Praneeth. You've kind of, positioned me really high with Tatas and Reliance and all of that. I'm just a humble human being. So, but thank you. Thank you for inviting me to have this conversation with you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So can we begin with the questions?
Yeah. So, who's going to take over from here?
It'll be me itself. I'll be asking the questions.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So the first question is, what was the idea or vision behind founding Corporate Diva? Could you give us a brief idea about Corporate Diva and to the audience?
Absolutely. The idea behind Corporate Diva, in fact, not only just Corporate Diva, I think for all of you here present, entrepreneurial success happens when you're able to identify a complex gap and provide a simple solution to it. And that's exactly been the journey of Corporate Diva. The complex gap that I identified was of lesser women in decision-making positions, period. One would notice a lot of women at work, greater percentages of them at the start level, at, kind of going on with the mid-management level as well. But the moment one would look at senior leadership, positions where decisions were made, we would find a minuscule amount of women presence there. And that irked me, honestly, as a woman leader myself. And I did a bit of research on it and I went through various reports across. And what I found was that, yes, there is a complex gap, but the solution is fairly simple, is to have more conversations, is to bridge gender gaps through upskilling and providing support. And that's what led to the foundation of Corporate Diva, simply building more women leaders and in an inclusive manner, right? Because I personally believe, and being at the helm of my organization, I definitely kind of pass on the baton of the ethos that it's not a journey to walk alone, it's a journey to walk along. So it's a very inclusive platform. We bring in men and women experts from across the globe to impart knowledge and skill development and address to factors that cause that gender gap at workplace. And we invite participants from across the globe to be a part of their own leadership journey, to own their growth and invest in self. And that's been the foundation in just a couple of sentences on Corporate Diva.
It sounds really wonderful. So, how can young professionals or students here who aspire to be future leaders benefit from Corporate Diva?
Well, Corporate Diva started off as an initiative for women at work. And over a period of the decade that we've been doing this work, today it translates to be an upskilling and support need platform for essentially women, but as I said, it's more inclusive. So I conduct a lot of sessions and workshops for universities and colleges and MBA graduate schools and all of that. But today the platform addresses to the support and upskilling needs of the entire life cycle of a woman professional, starting from women in universities, getting them corporate ready, to emerging women leaders, enabling them segue into senior management positions, to, at the board level and grassroots level entrepreneurs and returning career women. But where students and people like you could benefit from is from the section where we address to corporate readiness for university graduates.
And do you have any specific attributes that you seek in modern day women's leadership?
Well, I know I started off working towards building women leaders, but eventually I would love to be in a space where we don't need to call out a gender when it comes to leadership. And that's the gap that we're bridging, right? Do we ever say that men leaders? Why do we consistently have to say women leaders? So having said that, the corporate setup all these years and dating back to whenever you wish to in terms of the corporate life cycle, it's been very patriarchal in nature, it's been very masculine in nature. It is, when you talk about a leader, you kind of, immediate elements that come into your mind are assertiveness, are a certain kind of image comes into your mind, which is a very bossy, a masculine, a leader kind of an image. But I think the past 2.5, 3 years of the pandemic have really brought forth and highlighted the importance of empathy, of nurturing, of caregiving, of just being human, rather than, practicing authoritarian kind of a leadership style. So yes, what differentiates modern women in terms of leadership is for the importance for them to own their femininity as leaders. Uh, Having said that, as I said, there's never been any discrimination on gender at our end in the initiative that we work on. And we firmly believe that while men bring in a certain skill set of leadership elements and qualities, and are not apologetic about it, similarly, women bring in unique leadership elements and qualities like empathy, like being understanding, like being a little more onto the caregiving side of it, and servant leadership part of it. Those elements women today need to own, and own them unapologetically, because both genders contribute hugely to the holistic leadership development and the holistic success of any organization.
And is there anyone that's influenced you the most to get to be the best version of yourself? If so, who is it?
There have been many who've been aspirations for me, and this one's for each one of you here. Any time that you want to be influenced by somebody to take your next step forward, or to encourage you, or to motivate you in life, just go to the nearest mirror and look at the person that you see there. That's going to be your inspiration for your next steps forward. And with a promise to that person that I'm going to be better tomorrow than today. I'm going to be wiser tomorrow than today. I have aspirations and goals in mind, and I'm going to take that one step forward each day. It's okay if I fall. It's okay if I take a step backward and I may not be able to run the rat race as efficiently as others. But do I really want to be a rat in that race? Or do I just want to achieve what I set myself as a goal and work towards it consistently with perseverance, not giving up, and adding value to yourself each day? So if there is that person who inspires me each day, it is the person I wake up every day in the morning and look up to in the mirror, and I just say that, all right, one notch ahead today.
That's very inspirational, ma'am. So, how did your own personal journey give you the exposure to diversity and inclusion?
So diversity and inclusion, equity, these are fancy terms in today's times, and they've become really big terms as well. But, growing up in the Indian Armed Forces, my dad was in the army. These were things that were a very normal part of our DNA, showing up, showing respect, irrespective of, gender, being exposed to so many different cultures, values, and realizing that if everybody is coming from their space of logic, they have an iota to contribute. So growing up, diversity, equity, inclusion, today that I learn more in depth about, has already been ingrained as a part of my DNA. But that knowledge or unconscious knowledge today is consciously given out as a practice for the benefit or for the larger benefit. So yeah, I mean, I really, these are terms that one loves to relate with. They're quite fancy terms in the market today, right? They're quite, terminologies that give you a little edge above the others in terms of recognition and all of that. But trust you me, it all just falls down to just being human and respecting human psyches, human values, their cultures. And it's like that, there's this WhatsApp image that is floating around, which shows the number 9 and one person standing on one side, the other person standing on the other side, right? The other person standing on this side that is viewing it as the number 6 is not incorrect. You just need to realize that, and neither is this person who's viewing it as number 9. We just need to realize that they are at different spectrums, they are at different zones from where they're perceiving things. And once we kind of take that little initiative to shifting gears for ourselves and getting into their shoes to understand where they're coming from, that's about it. That's about diversity, that's about inclusion, that's about equity. Unfortunately, it's quite a struggle just making that little shift of getting into that zone, because everybody's happy in their own comfort zone.
And your list of clients contains it's very large, and you have a lot of top international companies. So can you tell us what is the most difficult part of implementing such a diversity program in a big company?
The biggest challenge is to run diversity programs for larger organizations. And I'll tell you why. Because when you work with a smaller cohort of people, a smaller group of people, the alignment is far greater. The larger, and this is again one request from my side to each one of you, as much as your professional, personal, social media ecosystem is going to push you for numbers, how many followers, how many comments, how many likes, how many people are you impacting, and all of that, you have to understand one thing, that you have to do your work irrespective of numbers, and do your work oriented towards result and impact. So the challenge that I face with larger organizations and who play the number game is that diversity, you would have recently seen Women's Day, all of that is a very token oriented representation. It's a very tick mark oriented representation. We've got to move beyond that tick mark. And that's why proudly at Corporate Diva, we say that, it's not about Women's Day, it's not about Men's Day. By the way, I hope you guys know 19th November is International Men's Day, right? But every day, 365 days a year is Human Day. if we can remove that tokenism, if we can remove the tick marks in our life, and we genuinely work towards doing what needs to be done, that is more important. And that's a challenge that I face a lot in terms, it's very easy for people to say, Madam, Women's Day aa raha hai, ek aapka seminar karana hai. फाइन वुमेन्स डे आ रहा है, एक सेमिनार करा रहा है, मुझे लगता है कि ठीक है भाई, पूरा जग ऑफ वाटर देने के बजाय एक बूंद भी दिया तो एटलीस्ट समथिंग इन दैट ग्राउंड दैट माइट make things fertile. But having said that, this one day or this token representation, diversity hirings that happen, these are all tick marks. They wouldn't stand good in the long run, which is why it's been a constant struggle this long and longer. We're still 200 years away from equality as per the World Economic Forum. That's only because we've got to stop giving into these numbers, we've got to stop giving into tick marks, and we've got to kind of do things consistently on a daily basis to make things happen and give equal opportunities to everybody.
And apart from Corporate Divas, you're also the founder of Health of Women Forum, abbreviated HOW. So could you tell us a little bit about this and how it can impact the women at work?
In fact, HOW was laid its foundation before Corporate Diva, and that still is into employee well-being, and more importantly, in current times, mental health. The Health of Women Forum started off with my own personal journey, where again, especially, and I say this, I don't have a bias towards women, but I definitely know for sure that their journey is a shade tougher. And shade is an understatement, tougher than a man's journey. And everything comes into priority. And, you guys are still students, but if you would have noticed your mothers, your sisters, or the women, your grandmothers in your ecosystem, they will put everybody on priority. इसको खाना देना है, उसको वहां भेजना है, उसको ऑफिस का टिफिन पैक करना है, ये मीटिंग अटेंड करनी है, बट मीटिंग के साथ साथ कुक को इंस्ट्रक्शंस दिए जा रहे हैं कि खाना ये बनाना है, and all of that. There are multifaceted responsibilities on a woman's plate, and she tries to prioritize everything and everybody and not even consider herself on the list. The Health of Women Forum began as an initiative to enable women to identify their name on that list of priority and slowly walk up the ladder towards making yourself top priority in terms of your health and well-being, because women are the anchors of the ecosystem around. You would have seen how much of a foundation of your own home, whether your mom is a working professional or a homemaker or a caregiver, she holds and grips the entire ecosystem. 1 day, 2 days, if she is not around or if she is unwell or something, everything crumbles and falls apart and becomes chaos. So let's not negate that importance of women needing to prioritize their well-being. How can women benefit? Women can benefit. One is to learn the art of self-prioritization, and second is to invest in their well-being, their mental health, and which ultimately it's like a relay, right? So it is going to lead on to her passing the baton of a happier environment at work and at home, and that happy environment then the ripple travels further. So yeah, that's how they would benefit of it.
So it's like a butterfly effect of happiness is basically what it is.
I'd love to, yes. If that's how you want to say it, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So are there any steps to be taken for someone without a leadership mindset to get a leadership mindset? And if so, would that make you a good leader?
Well, absolutely. At every stage in life. Now, each one of us have a leader in us. A leader, especially I understand that, especially at your age, I remember myself also, leader was equivalent to a boss, a manager. But leader in its truest form, you're a leader right now because you're leading this entire cohort of people coming together and channelizing it towards the question and answer that is going on right now. Your teammates could be leaders in their own respect when it came to connecting and reaching out to me and all of that. So what I'm trying to say is each one of us is a leader. Now, the leadership mindset, The leadership mindset comes from a lot of self-awareness. It comes from the fact that I need to own my growth. And this is again something for each one of you when you step into the corporates. Don't wait for people to identify you or identify potential in you. And that's one end of the spectrum. And second end of the spectrum is don't land up in a zone of self-bragging that I know it all. You've got to be in the middle path. And that middle path is what I call the leadership mindset, where you realize your capabilities, your potentials. At the same time, you're open to, enriching yourself in that journey by learning, by taking feedback. And in fact, again, one thing I'd like to reiterate for each one of you is that, often we're all into good feedbacks. Oh, very good. It was really nice. You're such a good learned person. You did that job fabulously well. And all of that. And one negative feedback is almost like a bubble bursting, or there's a balloon ki hawa phus ho jati hai, you just fall down to your knees, that what went wrong. But I think in today's time, in such a fast-paced world, when you are receiving feedback, positive or negative, superb, people are taking time out for you. All the more when you're receiving negative feedback, please take it as a free of cost self-audit, right? Which someone in this whole busy world where time is so much of a premium has taken time out, evaluated you or your task or your progress, and come back to you with the pressing points or opportunity areas. Please take that as a free audit for yourself and move on, build on to it. And all of these are elements of leadership, right? All of these are elements of being self-aware, being open to learning, being open to feedback, encouraging people on the way up, right? A lot of us, and I can understand that psyche at this age for sure, that, hey, you know what? I'll do my work and I will not right now tell it to people. I want to excel. I want to, grab that number one spot and all of that. That competitiveness is a good feeling, is a good space to be in. But understand that in your journey forward, it's got to be a lot more on coexistence than competition. You're not going to reach too far with competing all the time. You're going to land into a zone of fatigue. You land into a zone of burnout. You will not have a second line behind you who has your back. If you want to build a leadership mindset where you have a second line behind you who has your back, so you have scope to take a break and to falter or to fall and yet rise, you will have to involve people into it and take it as a collective, power of the collective. So yeah, that's about it on the leadership mindset. The rest is all too much of gyan. But if you really break it down to simple things, it's like, a dietitian talking about carbs and proteins and good fats and bad fats and omegas and all of that, right? Leadership is all of that today, but it comes down to basic dal, roti, dahi, sabzi, pani, right? And that's what you've got to have in your life to excel and succeed.
Thank you for that. It was very insightful. And do you have any plans or future aspirations in bringing up the upskilling and supporting of the entire women professional industry? And are you thinking global?
Well, I was actually about to correct you in my introduction itself. It's beyond India now, definitely. Last year, we did a global summit at Corporate Diva, which involved 21 experts from 12 countries across the globe. We had 700 people from, I think, 17 countries logging into that summit. We had Sherry Blair logging in from the UK. We had Mr. Mohandas Pai, Abhinav Bindra, Gulpanag, all of those people showing up and for the summit. And we are also conducting cohorts, the most recent ones being in South Africa and Norway, along with India. So yes, we are moving towards global footprints. There is tremendous scope in terms of mentoring and coaching, guiding people in the right direction. But what is also important is that it's an industry that has really mushroomed in the pandemic, the past 2 years. Everybody, you go on LinkedIn and everybody's a coach. I'm yet to find somebody who says, I'm a coachy, please, I need help. Everybody's out there to give help, right? So you've got to be a little careful in terms of treading your path. Corporate Diva per se is very, very impact oriented. We believe in growth, we believe in expansion, we believe in global footprints, but we will travel slow and steady, and take footprints that last. Uh, and that's what the journey is currently. So we are expanding into other countries as well.
All the best for like your global expansion. I'm pretty sure it'll be very successful. And we at IEEE, we have an affinity group called Women in Engineering. And this group is dedicated to promoting women engineers and scientists and inspiring women around the world to follow their academic interests to a career in engineering. So, how do you see that this will impact certain groups or individuals to pursue engineering?
It's a fabulous, if not fantabulous, initiative, right? It's really lovely to have the initiative like that. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I'm a woman and I have a bias to my gender and all of those fancy things. But statistically, if you look at the global reports, be it from McKinsey, be it from the World Economic Forum, be it anybody else for that matter, you will see certain data points which say that, which highlights the caliber of women, the elements in terms of credibility and leadership that they bring to the table, but also it highlights the dropouts of women from challenging workspaces, because there comes in a time in a woman's life wherein marriage happens, maternity happens, family has a larger role or needs or demands more attention, and that's the time that she is exposed to a crossroads in her life where she grapples with making that choice between professional and personal and social. So I think initiatives like the one that you mentioned right now for women in engineering are great, because not only should it limit to an initiative where you're discussing only academic success and all of that, I think you should bring in a lot more value adds in terms of men and women role models who have been through similar journeys and who give you direction on how it's not the end of the tunnel and how there is still light at the other end of the tunnel and how to navigate through the challenges and yet do the balancing act between work and life. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be happy if you guys connect me to that, the person leading that initiative, and we can definitely explore, possibilities in terms of how we could provide our support and contribution to them.
Sure, we'll get on that. And the motto of HOW, making a woman fall in love with herself. I'm sorry, I'll just repeat. The motto of HOW, making a woman fall in love again, this time with herself, is really inspiring. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, I'm actually happy that the one sentence that I said to myself before formulating the HOW forum, which was way back in 2012. Yeah, a decade already. So that sentence was because as I said, HOW Forum was on the foundations of my own personal journey as a woman professional, grappling with challenges, being overseas for close to about 8-9 years, and going through the challenges of a woman professional. Making a woman fall in love this time with herself came in because I was at those crossroads where everything else, everybody else took priority, took importance in my life. And I was professionally, personally, socially in a stage of crumbling. And I didn't know where to look, which way to go. There weren't forums at that time, where back in 2008-9, when I returned to India, there wasn't a support system. Social media was also fairly nascent in its stages. And therefore, I think after rising, falling, picking myself up and all of that, I realized that, this cliche of self-love, which again is today being taken into absolutely, literally like a self-Valentine's Day. But there is tremendous power in loving yourself. Because as I said, if you're the anchor to your ecosystem, or without even being, kind of put into a situation where you're an anchor, if you just take life as such, Two things. One is that you will never be able to pour out of an empty cup. So you've got to fill your cup in. And the second thing is what you fill into that cup is what you will pour out. So if you're filling your cup with prioritization, understanding your needs first as an individual, like again, you quote that example of the oxygen mask in an airplane. You put your mask first and then help others. Self-love is that oxygen mask for ourselves in our lives, irrespective of gender. You've got to understand and respect yourself first, and that's when you pour the same out, and therefore you create an ecosystem where people respect and love you for who you are and not compete with anybody else for who they are. So therefore, making a woman fall in love again, this time with herself, was something that really, really hit me deep, hit me hard, and I'm glad it's creating waves.
And, Douglas McGregor said it would be difficult to decode self-limit and beliefs. But what magic do you do in achieving this through your ideas?
Yeah, talking about magic, I'm not much of a believer of magic. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen over a short period of time. If I have to define magic, it will be, it will be a consistent investment in self. And I'm not saying investment in self always is monetary. And especially in today's times, you guys are so privileged. You've got, I think, 60% of the global Gyan in universities on the click of a button, and that also free of charge. So coming back to decoding self-limiting beliefs, a lot of that starts with self-awareness. A lot of that, because especially in our cultural setup, we're just a couple of decades on from freedom, right? We've always been a victim of not being free, we being dependent or being ruled by. So we inherently are too harsh on ourselves. We inherently undermine our own potential. We don't speak it out loud. We don't make ourselves heard in areas that we firmly believe in. And I'm saying this with one disclaimer, that don't be rigid. Don't be closed to learning, or don't be closed to feedback, or don't be closed to evolution. Because the moment you get rigid, you get stuck, you don't evolve, you stagnate all the more. Knowing it all is something that you will never be able to achieve, because each day is a new learning, and you pick learnings up from your environment as well. Coming back to decoding self-limiting beliefs include a fancy term, the imposter syndrome, which essentially translates into I'm not good enough. And that happens with, research says it happens a lot more with women vis-a-vis men. Because again, men are conditioned culturally as well to take the lead, to be the primary breadwinners. And that's been my experience in the corporates as well. When a man is about 60-65% ready on a particular knowledge of a particular subject, he will go ahead and grab the opportunity and create scope for learning on the journey, on the job. A woman will push herself hard to 120% of preparation and knowledge on the topic, and yet say, am I good enough to take that up? And therefore does not leave much room to learn, because consistently she has been put under pressure that, there's always judgment and bias around her. You can't blame her for it. What is important is you guys are, and I'm really calling you guys a privileged batch from the core of my heart, because I know the ground realities. You are privileged enough to be those people who own their voice. You are privileged enough to tell people, set boundaries for yourself. What are the deliverables that you can promise? What are the time frames that you can promise? You can be pushed to achieve greater limits, but it should not burn you out. So that is why decoding self-limiting beliefs is not a magic wand that one puts on people, and it's like that Cinderella touch. But you remember that Cinderella touch vanishes at the clock striking 12. You don't want that to happen to yourself. For that, you've got to consistently remind yourself. first is acknowledge what are the beliefs that limit you. What are the beliefs that you create in your mind that act as hurdles in your journey? Acknowledgement is the first step forward. From acknowledgement, moving to awareness. Now that I know that these things are hindrance or roadblocks in my journey, what do I do to do away with those roadblocks in my life? And that is where you will need to, kind of seek guidance, mentoring, or coaching, howsoever you deem right, but to work on the awareness that you've gotten. And once you've gotten the awareness of, all right, here is a roadblock, now I've identified what needs to be done, the journey that starts there, it doesn't end there. Now, that will now take you on a journey where on every single day you will have to, there will be times where you will be drifted here and there that, all right, I've learned that this is a self-limiting belief. I know what to do with it. But you know what? I don't think I can make that shift. So each day you've got to push yourself onto the right direction to come onto the track of removing those hurdles of self-limiting beliefs. So it does require time, effort, energy. It is not, it's not like the current times where everything is too fast, and a lot on the surface. If you've got to really make the impact happen to others and to yourself, you've got to devote time, effort, energy into it. There's no shortcut to that.
So much, ma'am, for such an insightful and enlightening chat. I hope the audience was able to learn a lot. And can we start asking them to send in their questions? Or is there anything else you would like to say, ma'am, before we accept questions?
No, I think I'll be happy to answer questions because, you guys are at the cusp of tomorrow entering the corporate world, the work world. And if there are any things that you'd like to know in terms of, there are a million questions. I had a million questions. I was one of those people where people had to tell me to keep shut and not have questions. So therefore, I will keep shut for now and I will invite questions.
So the audience members can start sending their questions. All right. So we have Himanshu Mishra saying, what challenges do you face in tackling financial and stress-related issues at the lowest breakpoints of your career?
Finances related stress, again, is relative. Because, when I had this last conversations with the students of IIM Jammu, and we were having a conversation on what is their definition of success. And I'm sure a lot of you will resonate with that as well, is that our definition of success is, being funded hugely, having a million followers, having lots of money, lots of, fancy cars or fancy labels or fancy addresses and all of that. If you give into that, you're already setting yourself up for financial stress. And you're not going to live your life. And we've all seen in the recent past that the most wealthiest people have also crumbled in times of the pandemic and have not been able to enjoy what they worked so hard for. So coming to that, one is set realistic goals, financial goals for yourself. Just because XYZ is doing X amount of dollars of business does not mean that what you're doing in terms of thousands of rupees is not good enough. You've got to define that first. Second is, have two brackets of understanding of your requirements. One is your needs, second is your wants. You need to have food on the table. You will later on need to have a shelter or a roof above your head. You will need to provide to certain financial requirements of yourself and your family and all of that. All of you will need to invest in, let's say education or your career development and all. Those are all needs. And yes, I have a Honda City, but I want a Merc, right? That's a great aspiration to have. That's a great, vision to look at. But don't burn your Honda City to get the Mercedes. That's what I'm saying. I've had, while we were in Bombay, I've had, friends from the film industry, and most of them from the outside would drive Beamers, even the bike was a BMW bike and all of that. And personally, when I knew them and when we used to talk, they were deeply into debt. But then they said what to do, just to project an image. We have to buy a Beamer worth 1 CR, whereas our incomes are not matching up to that, and things like that. So I think you've got to do that balancing act by looking inwardly. What are my needs? Yes, there is a certain amount of projection that you will need, but all of that, वो बहुत पुरानी कहावत है कि जितनी चादर उतने पैर पसारो. आज के ज़माने में when loans and all of that are easily available, ठीक है, चादर से थोड़ा सा 2 सेंटीमीटर आगे पैर पसार लो, no problem. But don't double triple it up. You're going to land up in putting yourself in so much of stress that you will not be able to come out of it. We've seen in the past itself so many global organizations collapsing because of their debt. So have visions in place, take risks, have aspirations, have goals, but don't burn yourself into the wants. First address to the needs.
Ma'am, I think Nishan wants to unmute and ask a question. So yeah, Nishan, you can go ahead.
Good morning, all. Am I audible? First of all, thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful session. My question is a little bit personal, but like I'm in my second year right now, and I have a problem and I have the solution as well. Since you're a co-founder yourself, how do you think I should? What do you think I should do to break into the startup industry? Because according to me, this is what I think, that finding a reliable team right now is very important. Not like a big team, but 2, 3 people. So what do you think I should do right now so that I can take this forward?
Thanks. That's a lovely, brilliant question, Nishant, because being the founder, I've been through that journey that, you're in a space that you've identified a problem. You also have identified the solution that you can provide. Now is the important step of taking that first step forward. How do you identify reliable people? How do you identify, where do you get started and all of that? First thing is be your own critic, right? Look at what you have proposed and put yourself at the consumer end. Will you buy it? If it's a product or even if it's a service, if it was given to you, somebody else came up with this solution and it was provided to you at the cost that you are asking for, right? Will you buy that product at that cost or not? Does it solve your purpose? And put yourself completely in the shoes of your target audience. Will that serve their purpose? Because, like I'll give you a very frivolous example, but it's a very realistic example. When we travel, bus stops में और trains में और सब जगह आपको you see that वो कंघी बेचने वाले बहुत सारे मिलते हैं आपको, right? 2 रुपए की कंघी, 10 रुपए की कंघी. Now, each one of us know that we need a comb, right? But do all of us go and buy the comb all the time? No. Which means that everybody will have their needs and wants definitely in place, but they will also put a value to their requirement and how in need are they for that requirement. So first is as I said, be a critic yourself, put yourself in the other person's shoes, especially your target audience shoes, because पैसा निकलवाना किसी से भी आसान नहीं होगा, right? वो 2 रुपए की कंघी के लिए हम पैसा नहीं निकालते, जान के भी कि वो छोटा बच्चा है, होमलेस है, वो बेच रहा है, उसको 2 रुपए 10 रुपए हेल्प कर लेंगे एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, उसके बाद भी हम लोग वो नहीं निकालते हैं. So imagine you are offering to the to the client or to the audience, target audience, to shell money out. You have to generate, create, and communicate the value. Next is coming on to how do you put this whole plan together. I think before you start building a team, you've got to first get on to an expert who can give you guidance and direction as to how feasible is your idea, what can you do. There are tons of free resources available for grassroots level entrepreneurs in the ideation space, which you can leverage for communicating the value of what you have in mind. And then build onto it with a business plan, with a revenue plan. What problem are you solving? What value are you creating? All of that. And then once all of that is put together is when you start building a team, and now will be the time of the value promised to be actionated and delivered. So it's a step-by-step process, and I'll be happy to kind of, help you in case you need any guidance.
Thank you so much, ma'am. But I just wanted to ask that you said that I need to talk to the industry experts first, right?
Yes.
So the thing is, since you have an MBA in HR, so you know better people. I mean, how to judge people. So the thing is, if I'm kind of scared that if I tell my idea to some expert, since the expert has more experience, more money, more knowledge, he might execute it first. I'm not saying it will happen always, but one in 100 times it might happen. Since I've already worked in 2 startups before this, so the first startup CEO or the co-founder, this thing has happened with him that he reached out for help and the other person stole his idea. So I'm kind of worried about that also. So how do I
I
trust the
understand
expert?
that worry, and that's a very, very valid worry, right? But I can tell you one thing, Nishant, that they may steal your idea, but they can never steal your passion and your understanding of that idea. That is one thing. And one example of that is, as a founder myself, I constantly remind myself on is somebody walked up to a honeybee and asked that you do all the mehnat of going to every flower, sucking nectar out of that, putting it on your web, and then you do all the hard work to create that honey. And how simple is it for somebody to walk and take that and just extract honey and sell it and market and commercialize it, right? But the honeybee smiles back and says, but they still need to come back to me for the art of making it. So when you have your idea, when you have your proposition, first is believe in it. Second is, yes, be wary about the people that you interact with. Don't let people take you for granted. And it's okay if somebody wants to translate your idea and provide it out there. If you have the passion of making it happen, you will make it happen. I can tell you, I'm sitting here in front of you. Tell me, what's the big deal of women leadership development? Any L&D person can come and do those assessments. Any L&D person can come and conduct sessions on personal branding, executive presence, building resilience, coaching, mentoring, all of that. Anybody can do it. What differentiates me? Why am I being able to be in a position where I'm able to do and create the brand that I've been able to with my organization is because of the way we do it. And that way will be determined only by you. They can take the idea, they can give the solution, they can do anything. How do you execute is going to be something unique to you and your passion and your connect with that solution. So you will have to take that risk of going out. And second is, don't give out all your beans in the basket. मूवी के ट्रेलर्स हम देखते हैं ना, पूरी मूवी थोड़ी ना दे देते हैं वो लोग यूट्यूब पे ऐसे ही. So learn, and that's where I said, if you need guidance, you can circle back to me. Learn to give out trailers of your movie. And only when people sign up with the contracts or the MOUs and all of that is when you start giving them a glimpse of the picture, right? Trailer देखकर जिसको movie बनानी बना लो, no problem.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
basically, you're saying that I give my USP.
Sorry, Nishant, I can't hear you. Your voice is breaking.
Hello, am I audible?
You're
Hello.
audible, yes.
So, ma'am, basically, right now you're saying that I don't give out my USP. I just give a theme of the idea to the person and then take advice.
Absolutely. Don't give out the nitty-gritties of the solution, right? It's like saying that, okay, there is let's say there is hard water and I have a solution to purify the water. First set of people whom you will filter out will be जिसको filtered water चाहिए है. कोई तो बोलेगा कि नहीं नहीं बेकार की चीजें मुझे नहीं चाहिए filtered water. I'm happy with hard water. मैं softener डाल लूंगा, मैं ये कर लूंगा, मैं वो कर लूंगा. I'm happy with hard water. नहीं चाहिए filtration. Those are the people automatically go on the side. Second will be the layer of people who will say कि हाँ, I'm interested in the filtered water. Now you may be putting in 10 elements in the filtration process to attain that filtered water. Tell them only 1 or 2, right? And say, this is what you get. That's the first step. And then is where you can build on and create that, set of team or people or guides or mentors or coaches who will genuinely then take it forward with you. So have your filtration layers, have your trailers in place.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If I need anything else, I will connect with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm most active on LinkedIn. And that's an open invitation to anybody. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Anything that I can help you with at any time for support, we'll be happy to.
Thank you so much.
Next question is from Kashish Kumari. Complexity in society, volatility, the cause of unstable markets with uncertainty. What are your thoughts on breaking these ambiguities of life?
You will never be able to break ambiguities in life. Today, after the pandemic, there have been so many. Itne diggaj log rahe. Is Hindi all right with you all? And or English kind of a delivery?
It's fine, it's fine.
Itne diggaj log rahe in terms of research, in terms of predictions, in terms of XYZ. How many of them actually predicted the pandemic?
No one, madam.
And sorry?
No one.
No one. We were all caught unaware, right? One fine day, we were told that, okay, mask up, shut down, isolate, सब कुछ दुकान बंद कर दो, घर बंद कर दो, सब कुछ बंद कर दो. So life as such, every single day will throw up things on you which are ambiguous, which are unplanned for, unscheduled for, uncalled for at times. But that doesn't mean that you waver. I am not a very good believer of people saying that don't have a plan B in place. It means that you are not 100% into plan A. No. You can be, your plan B can be a part of the 100% strategic planning of your plan A. Make it work that way. I'll give you a personal example here. At Corporate Diva, before the pandemic, I personally, and this is a personal example that I want to share because I hope that will resonate better. I was always of the firm belief that impact happens on a one-on-one, human-to-human level, right? You've got to have that offline connect where, as an expert, I not only, it's not about having that large group together and feeling really great that I'm only the one standing on this side of the table, but it was more about getting cues from your audience in terms of their body language. What are their understanding of the topic? You will see those question marks on people's face, and then you can reach out to them and say, all right, what is it that you didn't get and how can I help you understand it? Or if somebody's comfortable, not comfortable. Or so therefore, I always believed that my kind of work is a out and out offline work. It is not an online work. I don't think impact happens online. And therefore, when the pandemic happened, right, I was left with two options. One, to shut shop because of my belief that impact happens only on an offline mode. Second was risk taking. To take the risk, to take the plunge, to pivot online, and then be open to the fact that it's okay if we fall flat, no problem. फिर pandemic over होने की wait करेंगे, तब तक research करते हैं, and then we will launch ourselves back into the market once the offline scenario gets back into place. I can tell you that risk of more my team than myself, I was a little hesitant still. They pushed me, they nudged me and said, Dipika, we need to take this plunge. You know what? Within 10 days of the announcement by the Modi government on isolation and all this work from home and all of that. Within 10 days, we launched our first online cohort, right? First 10 days of the lockdown, from somebody who had such a rigid belief that online कुछ नहीं होगा, computer से बात करके थोड़ी ना impact होता है, offline होता है. Within 10 days of the lockdown, we launched our first online cohort. In the first online cohort itself, we had people registering not only from India, but from countries outside of India. And there were two women who enrolled from the US and were willing to stay up the opposite side of the clock for them to be a part of our cohort. And in an offline scenario where we were doing 2 or 3 cohorts and expanding into 2 or 3 cities in India, in an online setup, we've done, in the last 2 years, we've done almost about over 2 dozen of cohorts, learning cohorts, with women across the globe, and conducted a completely online global summit with an impact of over 17 countries, 700 people and dignitaries joining in. So that amount of risk taking, but it was a calculated risk, very, very calculated risk, with an expectation of failure. 2 things that one must keep in mind. I was totally, absolutely open to failure, कि नहीं होगा impact and हम लोग मुंह के बल गिरेंगे, कोई बात नहीं, research करेंगे ये 2 साल and then online, offline वापस से join in करेंगे. And I earned my stripe the day my mentor, my coach, I invited him for the first cohort to just, because he's very, very critical about the work that I do. And it's very difficult to get a compliment out of him, right? So I said, please come, because this is my first risk-taking attempt and I want you to be there for your inputs. When the cohort culminated and I said, okay, now tell me, what's your feedback? He summed it up in one line and he said, Dipika, the past 2 to 3 days of the cohort, right now, I feel as though I was in the offline cohort attending one of the sessions that you offered offline. And that was like a few moments for me. I said, superb. If this man has given a green signal, we've kind of, we're on the right path. So coming back to the question of over planning, of being, things being volatile, vulnerable, ambiguous, anxious. There is a terminology that we use, the VUCA times, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, right? Life is going to be like that. Today it's a pandemic. Tomorrow it could just be a digital virus. So when you're planning businesses, please plan something where you have a backup plan that, all right, if all of these Zooms and webinars and all of that stop, how will you still navigate through it? And that's the plan B that adds to the 100% of the plan A of your goal, right? That's how it's going to be. You'll never be in a zone. The moment you're in a comfort zone, you will be pushed out. And that pushing out is going to be for your growth, not for your collapse.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is from Chrysal Matthew. Can you share a few more things about your work in corporate well-being, which was applauded by Miss Sherry Blair?
The spelling, though, the mentioned of the chat, but yeah. Corporate well-being, which was applauded by Sherry Blair. I think this applause happened in 2017. And I was not even an ant in front of the whole startup ecosystem of India. So why did Sherry Blair pick me up? Not because I knew her personally. I've never known her personally. Though she shows up every time I write to her, that's a different thing. Probably that's karma from the last birth or whatever. But what was it that she identified? She identified genuinity and she identified authenticity. And the fact that there were negotiables, there were non-negotiables in my journey. When I started the endeavor, my kids were still young at that time. My ask to myself was that, yes, this is my calling, this is my purpose, this is the differentiation that I want to create, and I want to create a platform of impact, but I'm a mother and I need to nurture my children. दुनिया सवारने चलूंगी, अगर अपना घर नहीं सवारा तो किसी काम का नहीं है. So I knew for sure that my work hours will be the hours that I get from putting my children at 7 a.m. into the school bus and picking them up at 3 p.m. from the school bus. And that's what I defined as my working hours. And I was ridiculed for it. I was humiliated for it. I was in organizations where I would go to pitch for the work that I was doing in terms of corporate well-being and all of that. And I was mocked कि अब ये मम्मी जी को बच्चों को pick up करने जाना है. And that was okay by me because I knew that picking up my children from the bus was a non-negotiable. So again, similarly in the Global Summit, right? I'm talking about the Global Summit, which is fairly recent, which also had Cherry Blair in it. I wrote to Marshall Goldsmith as well, and he's supposed to be the god of leadership trainings, right? Look up Marshall Goldsmith. He is the absolute god of leadership development. Marshall also signed up for the conference to be a part of it. And all of that happened with none of them asking a single penny for showing up. And that happened purely because they knew the authenticity of the work and the space that it was coming from. They knew the kind of impact that it is heading towards. They knew that it is not a frivolous thing on the surface that is being done. There is immense work being done, irrespective of the summit or the applause and all of that. So here is a big takeaway, and I'm a standing testimony in front of you. You can assign $1 billion towards your marketing budgets. It will still be less vis-a-vis a group of 2 people speaking up for you real time as testimony to the impact that you have created. Believe in that. That is why consistently I say, don't fall prey to the number game. Because you know what? While you are falling prey to the number game, you will eventually become a number in that game. And it's very easy for the professional or global or whatever ecosystem to just cut away that number. Right? ऊपर से order आया कि budgets cross हो रहे हैं and थोड़ा सा head count cut करना है. कोई ये नहीं देखेगा कि कितने आपने sleepless nights डाली हैं या क्या करा. At the end of the day, you will still be a number for the corporate. So build your life beyond that number in a corporate. And therefore, you will find the right kind of people coming for and applauding you for the right kind of work that you're doing.
Next question is from Sanket Raj Patil. Every success story is 20 years in the making. What's that story in your life you always feel changed the dimensions towards infinite trivia?
So glad to know that I am midways, right? And even at midways, if Corporate Diva is being called a success, so we've probably kind of, we've achieved it. But yes, every success story is 20 years in the making, but it is every 20 seconds of living. Right, which means that your dedication, your perseverance, your commitment has to be for every 22nd of your breath. And that should be a non-negotiable. I can say that because today Corporate Diva has built a brand. It's a very fancy terminology in the corporate world. Oh, I've kind of attended a Corporate Diva cohort. Or I'm an expert or a participant at the Corporate Diva platform and blah, blah, blah. When I went out with the idea, and Nishant, this is also for you. When I went out with the idea of Corporate Diva, I was shown the door by the HRs over there saying, Madam, humko ramp walk nahi karana aapke Diva program se. Be open to the negative feedback. Be open to the fact that people will have a preconceived, boxed understanding. And that's what differentiates you as an entrepreneur, because you've already thought beyond the box. But to get people to think beyond the box, to open that box and broaden their perspective, broaden their horizon, it is a tough call. And if you stay committed, which is why I said every 22nd of your life, you've got to be committed to it. If you stay committed to it, the same organization that showed me the door without even making me tell them what the Corporate Diva ethos is, just 3 months ago came back to me, the organization, of course, people change in the organizations, but the same organization came back to me and said, ma'am, we want you to set up our women leadership community in our organization. And, it should have an aspirational brand value like Corporate Diva. And I was like, yes, made it. So celebrate small victories, work hard towards them. 20 years will pass, 30 years will pass, irrespective. 20 साल देखोगे तो आप शायद start line ही नहीं शुरू करोगे. 20 seconds देखोगे तो you will know what you need to do in the moment now. And you work towards those. And you don't consciously will then need to make a list of ye goal achieve karna, ye milestone achieve karna, or milestone. Nothing. You just need to just continue doing, believing, and learning and enriching and consuming feedback in the journey. And 20 years, 10 saal kaise nikal ke pata hi nahi chala. It seems like yesterday. Especially when that organization approached me, it really reminded me as though just yesterday I was thrown out of that organization saying ramp walk nahi karana. Right? So it's a journey. It's definitely a journey, not a destination.
Next is from Nyashi. What's your pinnacle strategy that made the process of making authentic, empathetic leaders?
My own authenticity. No strategy, no process. One just realized that there is a gap. One realized, one did a lot of research, a lot of data, a lot of hours. And these are hours when I was, when I was in a foreign country with 2 little children, with my husband traveling. I was in Moscow with -30 outside my window. No resource, no support system, nothing at all. But sitting and learning about why am I not finding support that I need? Why are there not any support forums? How do I create a support forum? So you will just have to pick things in your journey that resonate deeply with you. This was the part of my journey, because at every journey, and especially your place in your journey right now, you will be bombarded with a million of things. कि अच्छा मैं ये भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं engineering भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं startup भी बना सकता हूँ, मैं ये solution भी provide कर सकती हूँ, मैं ये value भी add कर सकती हूँ. You'll have a plethora of things running around, and I can understand that, because I remember when I took this plunge and I was, on a sabbatical because we had to move countries and all of that. I thought I could do everything. And I did. I blogged for recipes, right? I still remember a blog that I created on recipes because I thought I could cook well. Then I did a lot of initiatives in the HR space. I worked with the embassies outside of India because I thought I could contribute everywhere. And every time I was told by people that, no, you will have to ultimately find your true north to consistently build onto that. Otherwise, you'll be scattered all over. I never believed that. I to dates, to an extent, don't believe it, because I call myself like a prism. You throw white light into it, I will split it into 7 lights, and each light having their own, each color having their own significance. But the important part was it made me realize what my white light was. My white light was this gender gap, because I was a victim for it as well. So you will have to, stay authentic to what resonates deeply with you. There is no, all that I say is built on a disclaimer that there is no substitute for hard work, research, and a lot of study, and a lot of burning the, night lamp oil.
Ma'am, next question is from Deepa. Can you elaborate to us your thoughts on reason for being in respect to modern day feminism?
I would like to ask Deepa, what according to you is feminism? It's always lovely to get perspective. So I would like to learn, हम लोग थोड़े से outdated हो गए शायद, maybe from the newer generation, one would like to know, what is your understanding of feminism?
Yes, ma'am. So, according to me, feminism is a woman standing up for her rights and doing whatever she wants to do without like anybody restricting her. Basically, a
That's
woman
so.
standing up for herself.
Now, how does that differentiate between women standing for herself in the modern era or vis-a-vis the olden era?
In the modern era, women knows her rights, ma'am, what she should stand up for and what she should not. But in the olden era, there was so much of influence on her that so many people telling her ki you should not do that or this is not your right. So there is a difference like that, is what I believe.
And you're absolutely right on all three things that I asked you, Deepa. Congratulations. थोड़ी सी 2 मिनट डर गए होगे कि क्या बोल रहे हैं, why is she questioning me? But I wanted to gain that understanding, which is what brings me to a point that today, each one of us, irrespective of our gender, we are a privileged lot. We have voices, we have platforms to make our voices heard, and therefore, be it in olden days, because we didn't have this whole social media gamut and all of that, it probably needed certain bra burning kind of campaigns for coming across as a feminist, right? Today, times have changed. The modern Indian women and the concept of feminism is just her knowing what she truly deserves, asking for it, and asking for it with simplicity and clarity. As simple as that. So, you know, you are the youth. You guys are the future of our country. There is no point getting into an aggression zone. There is no point for all these riots to happen, these dharnas to happen. It doesn't do good to anybody, right? And in a country that we are, and I'm currently in Bangalore, which is Karnataka, we had riots over a not so important topic. But the riot started off from burning buses. And when they went down to find out who started to burn buses, it was an uneducated, illiterate old lady who was promised one meal of biryani and 100 rupees and was told to go burn a bus. So we're in a country where hunger persists, unemployment persists, and lack of education persists. And we've got to be the torchbearers of creating direction. And that's a responsibility on each one of you as the youth, as the future of India. Don't get into a zone of aggression. Don't get into the politics and the religious and the spiritual aspects of it. Just do what is right for a brighter, more neutral, more humane future. And do it with bringing everybody together, irrespective of their religion, and irrespective of their gender, irrespective of where they come from, who they come from, or whatever. As long as we collectively can align towards logic and a logic for a larger benefit. Let's just leave it to that rather than brand it under feminism or aggression or revolt or riot. So that'll be my take on it.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is from Hitesha, but I think she's speaking for everybody. So is there a possibility that we could have a Corporate Diva program in collaboration with IEEE so that we can all benefit?
Absolutely. Why not? Why not? You guys tell me, what topics would you want to be incorporated in the Corporate Diva? And yes, for all of us here, we do have fun as well, right? So yes, I'm wearing a chashma and I don't think I look nerdy, but I do study a little bit in my, topics of interest. But we have a lot of fun at Corporate Diva as well. And now that things are opening up, definitely we can plan something and have fun at the same time, learn and gear up for the future.
Looking forward to that, ma'am. Next from Chengapa, what would your advice to youngsters be to accept and deal with failures?
So I was having this conversation just three weeks ago with Jonty Rhodes. And we all know him, right? From the South African cricket team. Now, failure is, or success is a mindset. And if you evaluate, forget any other person, if you just evaluate yourself and the journey that you have traveled so far, how much have you learned from your highs and how much have you learned from your falls or failures? And if you look at it with a very neutral mindset, you would have learned far more from your failures than from your winning space. Now, and when I was having that conversation with John T. Rhodes, I asked him that, you guys were the winning team, and what happened suddenly, and he was withdrawn from being in the team. He says, when you're a winner or when you're a winning team, you're probably the most dangerous to your own self. Because of the winning and the high associated with the winning, you seldom look back at the journey that you have traveled to win that. And in that process, you also then, since you don't look at the journey, you also overlook the flaws that could have happened. But, luck was by your side and hard work was by your side and you had the win, you had the victory. But every time you fail, you definitely sit and, mourn over the fact that why did I fail? And you start evaluating what went wrong, how could I have done it better, what should I keep in mind for the next time? So you're actually more in progression in failure vis-a-vis as in a winning space. So dealing with failure, let me tell you, again, this is another image that has been doing a lot of rounds of what the universe is, what the earth is, what our country is, and where am I? Tiny little, from a larger space, not even telescopic invisibility or microscopic invisibility, right? That's how small that we are. And we have a sense of self, which is like as though you own the universe. So you fail and the universe collapses. Doesn't happen like that. Let's be real. Every failure teaches us something. I'll tell you, in my entrepreneurial journey, when I was just 3 years into it, I signed a contract with one person, an event management firm, and he promised the world to me in terms of branding and in terms of media coverage and in terms of all those PR drama and all of that. And since I'm very naive in that area, I said, "Okay, I'll take this expert help." It was a contract which he said I'm going to take 3 lakhs for. I was just 3 years into the business. It was a large sum of money. I was not a believer of putting that much funds into a marketing campaign or a PR campaign. Nevertheless, I was still nascent and I wanted the word to spread and I wanted visibility. So I signed up with this guy and I said, okay, you do the event management, the PR and the social media part of it. And we signed a contract. That guy did not deliver even 30 rupees worth of those 3 lakhs. But I had signed the amount with him on a contract. When I went back and I said, okay, I'll take legal help for this because this is like literally ripping me apart at a stage where I really can't afford it. I went to the lawyer and the lawyer said, you know what, Dipika, you probably didn't read well. All the pointers here are just so broad that you can never be able to pinpoint and bring it back to his non-execution of the skills. You probably didn't read your MOU well. The PR so-called, the media so-called, something I hated was to have Corporate Diva and the ramp walk and the beauty part of it associated. The media printed an article, corporate women set the ramp on fire. Right? I learned from that failure. I learned from that mistake. Something that I was looking at a positive milestone in terms of publicity and all of that, and I had paid a large amount far beyond what I could afford at that time, turned out to be the biggest disaster, the biggest failure. But you know what? It taught me something which I have built literally this whole organization on. To date, every contract that happens with the organization, I run through it personally, reading every single line of that contract. The first thing we tell to our corporate sign-ups or participant sign-ups or whatever, we will prepare the contract and send it to them. And they can tell us and we send it on a PDF, and they can tell us whether any edits need to be done. We will evaluate those edits and incorporate that. Biggest learning. Massive projects have been taken up after that, and touch wood, God has been kind. We've never faltered because I had personally gone through the learning of being defrauded or frauded. Never ever set aside a marketing budget for Corporate Diva after that time. It was purely through word of mouth. Participants, people, women from organizations came. हमने जो काम करना था, हमने पूरी शिद्दत से काम किया. They took the impact with them. They connected us to the organization, saying that, I have personally been through their cohorts, and their cohorts are very impactful, and we would want to do this for our org. Just like now you all said that, can we do something for IEEE? I didn't do any marketing for it, right? Similarly, so I've stopped allocating marketing budgets. I would rather give that as, fun times for my team and have get-togethers, go to a nice 5-star for a nice lavish meal, vis-a-vis give it into a social media for X amount of likes or whatever. Nahi chahiye. We don't want to live that clouded life of building a bubble, creating a bubble, and one little prick and things go flat. We rather go slow and steady and build it up as a foundation. Right? So your failures will be the biggest lessons of your life. You have to have the right kind of attitude to take it up. Don't take it personally. Don't take it, why did it happen to me? It happened to me for the biggest benefit as a reason, which there is probably a larger power looking over it.
Thank you for the lesson about failures, ma'am. Now we won't be afraid of failures. And next question from Subramanya. When a woman comes out of home to explore opportunities, what's one statement you would give to her, or what's your mantra for success?
I wish I had given this statement to myself much earlier than when I realized it, but it is going to be believe in yourself. As simple as that. Believe in yourself with a little asterisk, with a little disclaimer. Don't be rigid and don't be too much of yourself. Believe in your potential, your credibility, what you bring to the table. I'm repeating this. Believe in your grit, your perseverance, your attributes that you want to give into the journey. Right? Don't be result oriented. अच्छा वो होगा तो ये करेंगे. अच्छा ठीक है, अब थोड़ा सा ट्रैक्शन आ रहा है तो अब मैं उसमें थोड़ी और जान डालूंगी, अब मैं थोड़ी और पढ़ाई करूंगी. नहीं. I need to do my part of the giving. In the journey, results will happen. They may take their own time. My time is different from Priyanka Chopra's time, though we are friends from the armed forces. Her dad was under my dad in Delhi when we were posted together, and we used to have birthday parties together. But my journey is different than Priyanka Chopra's journey. Where she is, where I am. But does that make me less of who I am or more of who she is? No. We all have our own path to follow. We all have our shoes. It's always easy to say that, hey, I know how can it feel in your shoes. I can only imagine how it feels in your shoes. Nobody but yourself will know where the shoe pinches. And that's going to define your journey. So just don't believe in yourself, but don't be in awe of yourself. Believe in yourself with the hunger to learn and enrich more. That's going to be that one thing that I'm going to tell. Forget women. Why only women? Men and women and children, or anybody who wants to take a step forward for themselves.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very informative. I would now request everyone to switch on their cameras for a group photo.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, how did you deal with the, while pitching to VCs and firms, how did you deal with the IIT-IIM bias, if there's one? Because you don't have that safety net background of IIT-IIM.
To date, Nishant, I have had VCs and angels coming to me. I have never pitched, and I don't want to. As I said, I do my business differently. If you look up my LinkedIn profile as well, I call myself a philanthropreneur, purely because I do what I do at Corporate Diva from a very philanthropic state of intent. And yes, of course, corporates have deep pockets, and I don't spare them of the charges that I charge them for, which is where my entrepreneurial skills come into play, which is what pays my bills. So I've never sought VC funding or angel investment into my services from the platform, because of the single fact that not that I'm not open to them, but I come from a space where I don't want to make people feel like a number. So 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people as members and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know them one-on-one. I don't know their journeys, and I don't know what are their challenges. I think I would not want myself to be in a state like that. Neither would my team. So, so that's been the reality at our end. We have not asked or given into funding as of now. The day I find somebody who is genuinely invested in the cause and wants to now invest to take it forward, that's the day we will open our doors for inviting funding in. Until then, it's not that the door is locked, but it is definitely not open as well. Coming to biases and stereotypes and challenges, again, something very close to my heart, because I mentor a lot of women who are in the entrepreneurial space and who do go for these pitches. And in fact, on Friday, tomorrow itself, I am in one of the conferences where women will be doing their pitches. There are prevalent biases, and which we must all be aware of. We must all be aware of that no matter how much noise we're making on Women's Day and angel funding and all of that, there is still just 2 to 3% of funds that go to women-led organizations, right? There is a gap, huge gap. And because there is a bias, because आप बच्चे संभाल लोगे, आप घर कैसे मैनेज करते हो? How will you be able to take a decision when you have a family pressure on you? But tell me something, is it because of asexual reproduction that all we women have children? So the family is made out of men and women together, coming together as a unit, as as a home. So responsibilities need to be equal, if not equal, at least about 45-55 kind of a ratio. So men, honestly, and I've been through a lot of pitches where I've been on this side of the table evaluating those pitches. Men are questioned differently. Women are questioned differently. Men are questioned on the numbers, the future, the progression. Where do you see yourself? How will you make it work? What is your strategy? What is your revenue model? What is your business plan? Women are questioned, what if a crisis happens? How will you be able to balance? And there is a whole Harvard study on this. I'll be happy to share the link if you guys want. There's a whole Harvard study on how women are questioned negatively vis-a-vis a man questioned constructively, progressively. So there are biases. Today, we're not at that stage where we say that, okay, dharna dal ke aaj hum sare bias khatam kar denge. What is important is for men and women over here to be prepared for what lies ahead. And that is why when I say seek guidance, seek coaching, seek mentoring, reach out to industry experts, have your LinkedIn profiles up at an early stage, because this is the stage that you can falter, you can make mistakes. And in a social media world, you always have the unfollow, delete, block option kind of a thing to your advantage. So take the risks that you can on social media towards a meaningful purpose. And when it comes to biases, for men over here, pledge to yourself that you will not be a part of that bias in future. And to the woman over here, you will not give in to the bias that you come across. Hold your stance. The recent one being, I mean, I don't want to take names or whatever, but if you see the recent, there is this buzz on Shark Tank going on and all of that. And there was this pitch made by a fashion designer of sustainable fashion to Ashneer Grover. And in that pitch, she had gifted each of the sharks an outfit. And Ashneer literally, said that, "Ye kaun kharidega, aisa kaun kharidega?" And then happens a Kapil Sharma show, and Ashneer's wife happens to wear that outfit. Right? So that's the world, and that's the reality of the world. What is important is, how do you contribute to the existing reality, or how do you disconnect and contribute towards the reality that you would like to be a part of, or your future would like to be a part of. So there are biases. I'm not going to give a rosy picture here. There are stereotypes, there are rejections, but please, in nothing in life, take things personally. And if ever you have to take things personally, take it that somebody has done a free of cost audit. You look at that sipper guy, right, on Shark Tank. Look at that sipper guy, how he's bouncing back with data, with statistics, with him being mocked at, and he's leveraging that to his publicity. उसको इतनी publicity बेचारा बैठ के नहीं मिलती जितनी उसको वो failure में, ridicule में मिल गई publicity. And for all you know, somebody will come and invest into him because of all this publicity. So nothing goes waste. Stick to your guns.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the very insightful answer. But my question was a little different. What I wanted to ask was that you don't, like many people say today, you don't have a like IIM degree or an IIT degree. So there's no safety net. As in when you start up, even if you fail, if you have an IIM degree, you'll get a good job. So there was no safety net for you. So how did that, how did you not let that affect you?
Because I was absolutely open to failure. No? I was totally open to rejection. And that comes from the VC angle as well, right? I don't want to bring in funds which put me into the rat race of the number game. So the safety net is, like you said, you have identified a problem, you've identified the solution, and you have done your research behind it, and you know deep into the topic, the nitty-gritties of it. That's your safety net. No degree, no, I mean, I'm not saying that your degrees are bad or wrong or whatever. I mean, I'm married to a guy from himself, right? So yes, education, investment in self, coming up from top-notch colleges and all of that can give you a starting point. It's almost like, let's say, to quote an example, the Bollywoods or the Bollywood of India. You have that safety net of being a Rishi Kapoor's son or a Sri Devi's daughter and all of that. But then Priyanka Chopra did not have a safety net. She didn't come from a filmy background, but she paved her way through, right? Irfan Khan didn't come with a safety net.
Yarda.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So degrees will definitely play their role. But what is important is how invested are you? How much research have you done? How much are you into the topic of the solution providing? And that will take you far. I'm not saying it's going to be a bed of roses. It is going to be a very, very tough journey. People rip you apart and rip your self-esteem apart when it comes to money and numbers and all of that. Be ready for it. And your safety net is definitely going to be your qualifications and all of that, but it has to be your content, what you bring to the table.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we get everyone to turn on their cameras, please?
I'd really love to see the faces behind scenes and come forth. Let's take a nice picture together. And unfortunately for that, we will not have too much time. I have another commitment at 13:45. We're at 13:38. So we'll quickly take that picture. Can we have your cameras on, please? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we click.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We would like to express our gratitude with a token of appreciation.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking and putting forth my thoughts on this session. We'd love to stay in touch. And Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Do send me a copy of it. I will treasure it. And anytime in future, if you need any support, IEEE Corporate Diva, that's excited me. We can definitely have something.
Thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge, ma'am. It was very insightful.
My pleasure. Take care, you guys. All the best.
Thank you for joining the meeting to all the participants. It was really wonderful to have you all here. And now with this, we would like to close today's session.